Welcome to Being Extraordinary with Akasha Awaken. Here we awaken the Akash to the non-physical reality that stores ancient wisdom and magic for us all. This podcast is dedicated to the stories, the knowledge, and the people who have found a way to tap into this knowledge and bring it into our physical reality, fully allowing themselves to embrace our true and extraordinary nature, and hopefully inspiring you to do the same. All right, we're back, and today I have an amazing guest, Cody from Limitless Clothing in Prince Albert. Cody has an incredible story about essentially just taking a chance on something that you're passionate about. And that is my favorite thing to talk about, because when we take a chance on ourselves and we follow our heart, the universe has this funny way of making it work out. So you can introduce your title, because you have this very lovely umbrella of these gifts that you have. And then I'm curious, what was it when you were like, I need to make a run at this, at my business, at my passion? And then what is your business and passion?
Well, thank you very much, Kayla. But Limitless Gear Clothing is something that I started out of the trunk of my car just over 6 years ago, with about 100 t-shirts. And the brand's message, of course, was that we all have limitless potential inside of us.
Yes.
We just have to believe in ourselves and understand that, we have that within us. Now, when I first started 6 years ago, there wasn't as many supporters behind the brand as I initially thought. But it's because a lot of people thought of it as just another clothing item that people would wear and a t-shirt that would be forgotten at the back of a closet. But my full intentions of the brand was never to be just a regular t-shirt or regular hoodie or just a regular hat. It was to be a body of empowerment and a badge of honor, like somebody once told me. And you know what? I'm very thankful, because 6 years later, we're doing some pretty cool things now.
Yeah.
And growing that envelope and that umbrella, like you kindly said. And now, the public speaking about my past with addictions and mental health and entrepreneurship has grown to a point where I am just thankful each and every single day. I'm thankful for my business. I'm just accepting to the things that are there. And
Yes.
it's a pretty cool milestone, especially leading up to this point now, where you felt like you've almost put yourself in a crazy house from all the hours that you've worked. And
Oh, being an
yeah,
entrepreneur of any kind is not for the faint of heart. Like, you have to love it. It has to be a part of you, or it doesn't seem to manifest, because it's a lot of work.
I couldn't agree more. Like, you have to have those genuine motivators. Like I said the other day, somebody that was a speaking engagement that I was at asked me, like, when you first started, how much money did you think you were gonna, make doing what you're doing? That's not necessarily a question I've heard asked of me very many times,
Mm-hmm.
but it's an answer that I had at the tip of my tongue, because it's so true, and it rang true then and it rings true now. That, like, money wasn't the biggest motivator for me in the first place. It was about doing things for the right intentions, the right purpose, with the end results for the right reasons.
So what was that like spark of passion? What was it where you were like, I don't even care about the money, but this message or this path has to be walked?
Well, like, when I first got the idea of the clothing business started, I remember I was working as an EA with Youth at Risk.
Mm-hmm.
And I would remember when they would do their reading time, like half an hour first thing in the morning, I would be drawn on a piece of paper, all sorts of crazy designs, even though I'm not artistic at all. And, you know, something told me that, like, I've seen, the short depths of where life can go if you're, living a destructive path of crazy destructive tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't believe that, like, what I was doing was like the be all. I realized that, like, there's reasons why I survived, and it's not necessarily to just continue doing this job for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
When I really knew that I had to go all in was, like 3 years ago, around ish this time now, when I remember telling my mom, that we had conversations back and forth, but before I became this full-time entrepreneur. She asked if, maybe I should keep the trades kind of in my back pocket, because I was, an apprentice millwright, industrial mechanic. And deep down inside, I only loved that trade because of the people that I came across at coffee breaks and lunch breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that, it was not my cup of tea. And I basically remember telling my mom before I opened the store that we've had for 3 years now that I'm gonna go either bankrupt or I'm, gonna be successful at what I want to do next. And that was, a leap of faith. That that mindset, like a burn in the ships mentality mindset,
Mm-hmm.
uh, was everything. And thankfully, we're still here.
Yeah, that's so true. When I first started my company, I was kind of like, all right, I'd rather like try and fail than wonder my whole life if something better could have happened or something
Mm.
more fulfilling could have happened.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's just such a dangerous aspect of life. Like, to go into your older ages of life and like think of like, oh, if I would have done this, my life could have done this.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't live a life full of regret. We should live a life full of maybe decisions we could have tweaked a little bit better.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so true. Oh, I love that. I know. I think about that all the time. Like that's one of my greatest fears is, and that's just me personally. I'm not trying to project that onto everyone listening, but I just don't want to be, you know, 75 years old and wonder like what if? What could have been? And in my story, I just capped out like really early. I did all the things. I went to university, I picked a job that I thought I was going to care about, and then I got the experience and the jobs, and then I sat there and I was like, wow, I am like empty. I don't have anything. I have no money, no time. I'm exhausted. I sleep always. Like I can't make progress. And I was just like, yeah, like no, this isn't worth it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree. Like, and same, like, I reached the mill rate phase where, like, I was making more money than I ever thought I'd ever have in my bank account at a time. Like, every 2 weeks, I was, like, clearing, like, 6 grand when I, like, in the,
Oh my God,
it
that's
was,
awesome.
yeah, it was a point of, like, ridiculous, like, to the point where, like, working 80 hours a week just to go on your one day off and do laundry in the city of Regina from, I was living in Cornack, Saskatchewan at the time. And I remember going to Regina and spending a night in the hotel and like spending like $1,000 at the like shopping mall. And like I was still miserable. And
Yeah.
like I was thinking to myself, like, the heck's all this money for? Like if like that is like my tone of
Oh
happiness.
God, exactly. And there's like I think karma, we've talked about karma a lot, but like when you're not in alignment and you're not where you're supposed to be, it doesn't really seem to matter how much money you have or how much time you have. It's still just so unfulfilling.
Yeah.
And then you flip the scale and you lead with like your heart or your passion or what you think is really fascinating. And it's like the numbers don't always add up. You're like, well, maybe I'm making less when I'm just starting a business, like especially
Mm.
when you're just starting, right?
Yeah.
You're not making as much, but somehow like ends meet
Yeah.
in like the weirdest of ways.
Yeah.
It's always very interesting. That's happened to me at least two or three times I can think of where I shouldn't have made it, but then something weird happened and it was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. Well, no, I totally agree with that total alignment thing. Like when I first opened my store, like 3 years ago, I remember literally cutting grass on the side of like running my store. Like after I closed the store at 5:30, I'd go cut like five people's yards, and
So
like
busy.
yeah, and it got to a point which was like hilarious that like enough people were asking me to cut their grass, like where I literally had to decide, like, what the hell business am I doing again? Like, like where like it got to a point where people were asking me to cut the grass on like condos and apartments, and I was like, hey, should I start investing in like riding lawnmowers and things of that matter? And like, I was literally borrowing my mom's lawnmower at the time, and like
That's awesome.
making ends meet doing that. But like, yeah, it just felt like I've never been happier doing something in my life as a career
Mm-hmm.
up until that point. And that's where that clarification, that clear message of taking that journey of entrepreneurship was
Mm-hmm.
the ultimate, like, clear, like crystal clear vision for me.
And I think like when you say that, I reflect on some of my choices. And one of the things that made me decide to just go, because same thing, like when I first started, I quit my job, and then I worked at a restaurant and I was managing or serving just to like, yeah, supplement that income. But obviously when you choose a career like that, or just any career, it feels very like limiting, right? You're boxed in, like you're going to cut grass on a bigger scale forever. Like that's what you're doing.
Yes.
Or you're going to manage on this scale, or you're going to be a millwright at this scale. And there's just like no room for growth.
Yeah.
And like even in your business already, like you can follow what your fascinations are, and there's like so much potential. Even there's been some times where I'm like, like, am I crazy? Like, should I just, get a different job and just like stop worrying about the stress and stop worrying about these things? And then it's like, no, but that's the channel you'll be in forever. There's no room for growth. And with like these businesses, it's like, okay, well, we can be, have a clothing brand. And then you've moved into speaking engagements. And I know you have like other plans coming. And it's like, you can follow your fascinations and like grow with your business,
Yeah.
which you can't really do in a lot of other aspects. Because like, how was kind of the evolution like with your business, all these different things that you've kind of introduced?
You know, like another weird subject is, so like the speaking did technically start first for me.
Oh yeah.
It was like an engagement here, like one a year, or like one every like 3 months. And like every time in between that, I felt like a loss. I don't know what that was, but of course, the more and more I spoke, the more and more that loss escaped me. And I was thankful for that. And then I realized, I don't want to just do this once in a blue moon. That's what inspired the brand, of course, a little bit more and things of that matter. But, like doing that to a full extent to where it was so amazing and everything. And then it got to a point where it's like, I know for a fact I can do more for the people. Like, even where the fact is right now, where the storefronts, right? Told you I'm only open Fridays and Saturdays right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that ask me, like, are you doing okay with your business and everything like that? Like, a lot of people question it first. They're like, are you trying to find another job or something? And I just like kind of chuckle because like it's reality. Like the reality is, so many people automatically assume if you change things up in a business,
Yeah.
it's not working. But that's not the case here. And anyone that knows me knows, like personally, that's not the case, because I'm not gonna brag about my successes, but I'm not gonna hide them either, because I'm thankful for them. And they've allowed me to take care of my family, and they've allowed me to take care of many other families, and I'm incredibly thankful for that. But where that big change came from is knowing that I have more to offer this world in me than what I was doing, you know, prior.
Mm-hmm.
So like, having my store operating 5 days a week was amazing, and it's worked out well in the past. And having staff was amazing. I've had incredible staff help me at the store, but I know the difference in the balances of what I want to offer next needs some tweaking and needs some changing, because I want to offer life coaching for people. I want to offer more speaking engagements. And you have no idea how many times I've turned down opportunities to have a meeting with somebody, or I just couldn't cram that meeting in with somebody
Mm-hmm.
because I had to worry about being at my store from 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And if I like had to use the washroom, I had to hold my breath and run really quick, because I literally only had 30 seconds to like run upstairs and downstairs and use the washroom. And I was like, that is crazy.
That is crazy.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's so true. And that's like, I feel like that's the way that the world is slowly moving, that like sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
Like, why are we always just like sacrificing our mental, emotional, physical, well-being to just be available?
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of like what's happening. There's kind of this shift. And speaking of your like expansion, it reminds me of something that I learned early on in my kind of Akashic record career, that, when you share your gifts with the world, that's you sharing who you are. And that's you sharing, like you're saying, hey, I have value to give. I have something to give. I'm worthy of that. And then the universe is like, okay, as you wish. And it gives you like value
Mm-hmm.
and respect in return, because you set that principle. And whenever you get stuck, so let's say you're like, okay, well, I think I've maxed out what's available to me at what I'm offering right now. Then you're like, okay, how can I offer myself and my gifts to a larger volume of people? And then you invite a larger volume of abundance, whatever you define that as, could be money, time, love,
Mm-hmm.
health, happiness, is available to come back. So, like, I think it's natural to expand, but our society doesn't set us up that way.
No, our society sets us up that this is the cookie cutter program. You learn
Yes.
it.
So true.
You learn it, and this is how we roll with it. Um, in the case, like the most authentic lifestyle one can actually truly live is never to stop learning or expanding the knowledge or experiences that we have to offer or share with each other.
Yes.
Um,
And
yeah,
expansion always equals more expansion. Like whatever you choose in the now is what you will reap in the future. So I actually learned probably last year around this time that like when you expand your mind, expand your horizon, expand your social circle, expand your gifts, like you expand like your bank account, your heart, your well-being. And it's like if you just keep choosing to grow, life will grow with you.
yeah,
And I don't know why I never thought of it. It seems so simple, but when people are like, how can I have more money or how can I have more love or how can I have more time? It's like expand.
yeah,
Just expand something somewhere.
yeah. And that can start from small little steps, like if you're not an organized person, I didn't grow up very organized, like I promise you right now. But if you want to talk about the day that I had to plan in order to make everything work, and like I could literally show a calendar, okay, like, meet with this person 9 to 10, meet with this person 10 to 11 kind of thing, maybe 5 minutes in between. It just ended up being that, like, some were shorter on this side. And so I ended up having some extra time in between to actually do some extra
Oh,
work.
that's good.
Yeah. And like eat today, which was
I know. When I
nice.
seen your calendar, I was like, oh, that's the day I'm on it. I was like, shit, that's a big day. Is he going to be capable of another podcast? Like, oh, that's awesome.
But at the same time, like we're to go back full circle, right? When you feel in line or aligned, sorry, with what you're doing in life, like both of us mutually feel, you get that extra energy, you get that extra empowerment. That's like, okay, this is what's happening, and we're just gonna kind of let it roll.
Exactly. I know that's so true. Like, there are some days where I worked like, yeah, pushed myself to the limit, but the good that came out of it, you leave on such a high. You're like, that was incredible and worth every minute of it. Like, and that is something I can't say happened very often in any other job I've ever had.
Yeah.
So, what is the main message of Limitless? Like, obviously, the infinite potential, but when you're talking about like mental health and addictions, like, what's the message, the takeaway message that you like to leave for people?
And so, like, a big question I get asked all the time, actually, like people ask me in different realms, is like, "Oh, how long have you been sober?" and things of that matter. Like, don't get me wrong, like I have nothing but the most highest respect for every single individual that has chose the sober life in their journey, and I have some amazing friends that have chose that life, and I'm thankful to be friends with them. I always like to make it very clear, like I don't preach having to be sober and, like, not ever touch a drop of alcohol or anything like that. But I do hopefully like try to share the message that, like, being better about yourself isn't closing completely down to, like, something like going out with friends or whatever. It's about one to be better than what you were yesterday, even if it's like
Mm-hmm.
half a percentage of what you were yesterday. Like for me, I have growth stages in my life all over the place, whether it's a little bit more patience learning here and there, or just a little bit understanding when it comes to numbers, when it comes to business, or just being more confident speaking with a podcast and, with a friend like Kayla,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, that's awesome.
So just being a little bit better than what you were before, striving to at least make a difference in other people's lives is, something that comes full circle for me.
Yeah. And where did you find, so when you were working with as an EA with
Yeah.
the at-risk youth, is that when your kind of light went on and you were like, I have I can help these people. I can help people. Like where did that kind of like desire come from? When did it start to like wake up in you? Is that kind of where it started?
A little bit, but like, don't get me wrong. There's been multiple times that I've screwed up. But yeah, I read a book. Like I said, those kids used to read half an hour a day. Great, routine structure for school. Reading, it's just been shown time and time again. If you read and you try and learn and educate yourself, your life is going to expand, like we talked about, right? And so, like, one of the first books, I think it was the first book at like 20 some years old that I ever read from like front to back, like without like skipping major
Yeah.
chapters, was a book called what was it? It was by Norman Vincent Peale, um, Power of Positive Thinking. That was a book that actually incredibly changed major trajectories of my life. And it started pursuing more and more of that self-healing, that self-development journey. And then I started realizing, like, okay, you know what? Maybe all the shit that I went through wasn't for, just an accident. Maybe it was so that I can maybe do something more for others. And I knew exactly at the time, that like doing that work at that time wasn't everything that I was going to do for the rest of my life. I knew I had a lot more ahead of me. I just didn't know which path to take. So I just literally started with making small actions. Small, consistent actions led to another bigger action, which took to another big leap, and which, like, it projected and grew and expanded. And like I remember paying like $1,200 for my first like box of T-shirts, and that scared the shit out of me, to be honest. Up until right now, at a point where, full transparency, we can spend $10,000 and restock in the store on different items.
God, that's such a quantum leap. Like, that's amazing. And it happened because of your dedication. I feel it happened like, I don't want to say quickly, because I feel like the amount of hours you put into
Hmm.
it, if you actually put that into a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, it didn't happen that quickly. If you extrapolate that. But like your dedication to it and like your heartfelt passion, like that was only, how long ago was that? 6 years ago where you bought your first box?
6 years ago, like when I first started, and it was funny because like it's damn near like around this time. Like I started in January, and you should never start any retail business, clothing or anything in
Yeah,
January.
exactly.
But yeah, it was January like 6 years ago, like around this time exactly.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
But
And
yeah.
so, what is something that you've done? Because something about you that I've always admired, I don't think I've ever said this to you, but like you can like bust your butt and do all this work. And I know you have like burnout times, as we all do,
Oh yeah.
but you never become like resentful, as far as I can tell. You never become like shut down and removed. You're still like, I care about this enough and I'm going to keep going. So when people work that hard, including myself, sometimes I just like go into like shutdown mode. I'm like, I don't even know if I care about this right now. So what is it that like lights you up? Like what's that? So when you give, what is it that you receive in return that like continues to like move that forward with the passion that you had from day one? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'll try and answer that as best as possible, because that is super cool and super thankful for those kind words. But full transparency, because that's just who the hell I am. When it ever has got to the point of like wanting to quit and like pull back, I got to that point a couple times this past Christmas, because I was working five,
Mm.
6, 7 days a week, and like some of the hours I was putting in was like, it just got to a point where like I like just shook my head and I just sat in my chair and like waited for people maybe to come into my store, or each event that I'd go to, I was definitely drinking like maybe quadruple amount of coffee. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was I was pushing the envelope to a full extent I've never pushed before, and this is all with in the means of trying to have our brand newborn that was like at the time like a month or two, and like sleep was like just not a thing. And I already have like once in a while nights where like my brain does not stop with insomnia and like thinking about
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, if I create this will happen and this will happen. Like I literally think of the butterfly effects of like creating a product or a service, and it just throws me down a rabbit hole, and I just like stare at the walls for like hours thinking about like, if I could create this, I could change a lot of dynamics in people's lives. And but like I think it's actually coming to the point like, yes, I've hit a burnout phase, like lots in my short time of being a full time entrepreneur. But I think it's understanding when that burnout phase comes is to step back immediately as much as possible, as
Mm-hmm.
quick as possible, and just put everything at the, at the office desk or on my office, surface, and like try to leave it as best as possible until I recover with some rejuvenation. And so I did that, with my family, like shortly after Boxing Day. I took 2 weeks off where I closed the store down. I decided that I'm doing Fridays and Saturdays for January, maybe February, most likely February too. And I just like, I took that time with my family. I took that time with, just being at home, being present, not being on my phone and things of that matter. And it actually helped transfer a lot more ideas that I had deep down inside me into what's going to come next. And yeah, I'm excited.
Ah, that's awesome. So like being human, in like because of the world that I'm in with spirituality, like lots of indigenous teachings really come in, and it's kind of always about like you work with the cycles or the seasons, or you work with, you know, um yeah, like summer and winter and fall and like rest and harvest and all these things. And like again, society has conditioned us like no way, you work, you work, you work. You have to always be available. So I feel like you're just, like I'm being human. I'm honoring when I need rest.
Yeah.
I'm honoring when I want to be with my family or when I want to be productive or creative or what have you, which is really cool. I think we all need to do a little more of that.
Well,
And
yeah.
do you feel like also, it's just a question, like with your social media engagement, because you do have such a large following, and do you get lots of people come back to you being like, oh, your message like changed my life, like, or is it like the little one-on-one connections with customers or people that have, heard your speech? Because I feel like that's a huge thing for me that keeps me going, is when somebody says something to you like, that shit changed my life.
Yeah.
And you're like, yep, okay, that's why I'm doing it. Get out of bed. Keep going.
Yeah.
There's more people that need to know.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And like to get back on the time like capacity, like pushing the envelope and then taking that rest. I now am a firm believer, like not working that 40 hours a week. But if you have to work that 80 hours a week
Around Christmas.
around Christmas for like maybe like 2 months straight and then taking that
Yeah.
time, like I'm not a person that believes you have to work 40 hours a week and that's it. Maybe with a couple overtime hours, I'm a person that, if I have that energy, I have that inspiration, I have that creativity inside of me, just dying to come out, I'm going to
Hmm.
work that 100 hours a week if I need be, or 80 hours or whatever it may be. Maybe for a few weeks at a time. And then when I burn out, I'm going to pull back and I'm going to recharge and then go at it again. And for me personally, that's been like the most productive way of doing things, like truly.
And then you're like living proof that you can do that. I think people like that are an entrepreneur or do have a family or, have a business that demands a lot of them or whatever. It doesn't matter what the demands are. People don't give themselves permission to slow down and pull back the reins.
Yeah.
There's this assumption that, like, oh, if I'm not working, then my whole business is going to crumble and I'm going to lose what I've created. And I think people just don't choose it. And you're like living proof that, like, no, when you honor yourself and you live something with passion, like, it's going to keep going, it's
Yeah.
going to keep rolling. And you were saying earlier, you're like, I feel this peace inside of me that I don't have to be like constantly like, okay, well, what's the next thing?
No.
I need to pay my bills. Like, you're kind of at this spot where you're like, I don't have to stress about that. We're done with that chapter for now.
Yeah. For
Anyway.
now, don't get me wrong. 28's it's a long time to be done with,
Yeah.
timelines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I have an entire amount of books that I want to write. I have entirety of big projects that I want to create. And like a full truth of the matter is, if you do business and you live day to day, and you don't put that extra energy to rest when you can and where you should, you're not going to be able to be that true, authentic, creative self, right?
Hmm.
And I'm finding that more and more important as time goes on. It has reached a point though, like you said, where I'm not stressed out anymore. And for the first time as an entrepreneur, feeling like not to be stressed out about being an entrepreneur, that's holy hell. That's
And so it's
it's
6 years. Okay, I'm just trying to do the math. Like, when am I going to be at 6 years?
well, don't get me wrong. Like it was full time for 3 years,
Yeah.
very very part time and weekend ish for 3 years.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that 3 years of leap though, like I remember selling everything that I possibly could grab my hands on. I remember selling a basketball I had in my mom's like basement for like
That's
$20.
awesome.
And like I sold RSPs, like yeah, and like everything. I liquidated every single dollar that I possibly could to start my business in the first place. And then I found out like, different funding agencies can actually help you with projects and stuff. And they said, well, if you would have just held on and like, asked us for your help, we could have funded this project for you and, got you rolling and you could have had money still. And I remember laughing at that subject, like thinking, oh, because I didn't wait, I can't get help now. But
Of course.
since then, I've had resources, thankfully, and things of that matter. But yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
That's amazing that you can, I don't know. I like love hearing that. And then something else, like have you ever like wavered and been like, am I crazy? Or you just been like, no, this is it for me. Like, I feel like your confidence, or not your confidence, but like your conviction to like your dream just keeps on going. Like, what, if you were to give advice to people like me who like sometimes I love my business, I would never change it, but every once in a while you're like, wow, like I'm still working crazy hours and I'm still, like trying to constantly like what's the creative next endeavor? And especially with like the world right now, right? And how expensive everything is.
yeah.
So, what do you do, or what advice could you give to somebody where they're like pretty sure and very convicted that this is their journey? And like, where does that like confidence or that like relentlessness to the cause keep going? Like, where do you find that?
You said, this kind of topic about people like reconfirming what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
A while back, I didn't really touch base on that. Sorry,
Because I asked like so many questions at once.
that's okay. But actually, that fire does help burning the fire deep down inside me of like wanting to continue. Hearing different people's perspectives of, you know, what's it called, of like what I'm doing is maybe helping this world a little bit, and I'm thankful for that. But at the same time, understanding that you should never get into entrepreneurship in the first place to have those realms of feedback loop, because like it is important to understand that you're doing a good job, but it's very important to understand that you're doing a good job, not by somebody else's voice or somebody's confirmation that you are doing a good job. Recognition is nice and it's beautiful and it's lovely and all that fun jazz. But if you don't confirm with yourself that, holy shit, I am doing the right things for the right reason, and genuinely believe in that, you will burn out a lot quicker and sooner than what it takes to continue on the entrepreneurial journey.
Totally. When you say that, I can like see it in my own life. Like I'm just so critical of myself, so I don't take that time to be like, "Oh, like you're good. Like things are good." And like imagine if I did. Because have you ever got bad feedback?
Oh yeah, yeah,
The first time that happens, devastating.
yeah. It's not easy to take.
No.
It's not easy to take.
No, I remember getting bad feedback for like the first time ever, like fairly recently actually, and I was just like devastated. I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't fucking believe it." And then
Yeah,
someone was like, "You've been in business for like 3 years. Like, you never got bad feedback." And I was like, "Well, what about all the people that never gave me the feedback?
yeah,
Maybe they're thinking it." But
yeah.
yeah, you really have to like develop that relationship with yourself, I think, first.
Well, and another big like truth of tip of information that I like to share is like there's so many talented individuals that are creative and unique, powerful in their own means by their lives that they've created up until this point and the skills that they've mastered within themselves or outside of this world. And the shame is that there's so many needs to perfect things before you release them into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen it from people that have been close to me in my life, whether it's people I've worked with or seen some of the work they've done. There's too much concentration on perfection before just releasing it into the world and then trying to progress as time goes on.
Yes.
Because when you ask like literally for perfection, you're setting yourself up for a harsh, realistic or unrealistic realm of life. But like if you ask for progress, not perfection, then you're just going to love that pursuit and that progress in towards the direction that you've wanted. Like,
That's so true.
yeah,
And when I first started my business, the best piece of advice I was given was like, just put something out there. Like, your business should pay you before you're investing like hundred or like tens of thousands of dollars in a website developer and, this, that, or the other. They were like, start with a Facebook
yeah,
account. Start with $1,200 of product. Like,
yeah,
don't buy 10,000,
yeah,
1,200.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people, like, it has to be about wanting to come off very professional right from day one. But like, I started with a Facebook account and like I met when I did your first ever session, we just met here because I didn't have an office.
yeah,
Like
And me and my buddy were doing renovations at the time. So
Yeah.
you came to the store,
Like in the evening.
yeah, literally with my like painted pants on and like painted t-shirt, and
Yeah.
while my buddy was like hauling in drywall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like when you first start, like you have to just start small and recognize like that progress comes, because I started with, yeah, like little resources too.
yeah,
But I mean, I don't think people don't remember that part of the story as the progress happens. When I work with people and they want to open their spiritual based business, they're like, "Oh, I need to get a website and I have to do this and I have to do this." And I'm like, "No, Facebook and a
yeah,
free Square website so
yeah,
someone can pay you, or just let them e-transfer you." Like you don't have to be at that point if you're not at that point.
yeah,
And then I think it sets you up for failure in a way too, because you kind of destroy your dream before it's even like taken off. You've
yeah,
made it this labor of like perfectionism,
yeah,
and I think it stops people from even taking a chance.
yeah. See, and that's where like the people that want to commit to making things happen. I am personally one of those individuals that wants to just take action without regards of
Me too. Yeah, me
details.
too.
But in reality, when you have somebody that comes into your life, like I've had past staff that are detailed oriented people,
Mm-hmm.
complements the two very well, like and it has
Mm-hmm.
in the past. And I've had to pull the reins on a few things because for me, I personally think I'm a little dyslexic when it comes to spelling. But at the same time, I'm just not scared to be as real and as authentic and transparent as possible. And I don't care how many people see it. And the truth of the matter is, I think more than not have appreciated that than trying to over perfect something.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's something that we have in common. So like Cody doesn't really subscribe to astrology, but like we're both Aries. So if anyone knows what that means, like of course we're just gonna fucking go for it with no regards to anything and just see what happens. But I had someone tell me once, like, that's courageous to just be like, I don't fucking know how, but it's gonna happen. And then like whatever your strong suits are, after you work with somebody, they find their courage or they find their confidence because you displayed it. And I was like, that's probably true. Like I
Yeah.
feel that. I do feel like courage is something that I do have an abundance of.
Yeah.
And I would say same for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Like fuck, I don't know about the details, but we're going at $1,200, some resource, and see what happens. That's so cool.
It's a pretty free way of living life. And
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately what stepped into me wanting to be a life coach moving forward. Like
Mm.
I just started making this like known a few weeks ago that I want to be a life coach for people. And the fact is I feel like I can add a lot of value to different people's lives. The truth is I get asked to to mentor people like from all sorts of different realms of life, whether it's speaking, business, or whatever it may be. And like the truth is, if I said yes to every single person that has wanted me to mentor them, I wouldn't have time to work on my own business. I wouldn't have time to be with my family. I'd literally be mentoring people like 8 to 10, 12 hours a day. And it's just not realistic. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. I'm not at a point in life where I can do that completely, with my volunteer time. But that's what made me realize like I can help people, but at the same time, I have to continue to provide for my family. I have to continue to, take care of my family life at home. But at the same time, to step away from maybe more store hours operating,
Mm-hmm.
I can take those hours and I can put it into coaching for somebody, add value to them, but at the same time, be competent and take care of the people that I got to take care of.
Exactly.
And so,
And I
yeah,
found like, so this is something I was taught early, but like just karmically, even when you do things for free, like it just doesn't land with the other person because you've invested more in someone else's well-being than they've invested in their own,
yeah,
and it just doesn't work out. It just doesn't balance. And I did enough free readings in my lifetime to just see that in like see it in action, where you're like, okay, I've spent 3 hours, diving through your energy and providing and making this session for you, and then the person got it for free, and they just water off a duck's back. Like it just
take
was
it for
like,
granted.
yeah, they
Yeah,
weren't listening because they weren't invested. So I believe that you do need to be like people in general need to be compensated for the gifts that they have. And I mean, you get to decide the currency, but
yeah.
obviously money is really the only tangible currency in our culture. Like you can't pay your bills with like, you know, magic beans.
Well,
you need money.
don't get me wrong. That's very true. If magic beans were the currency of our world,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have a lot of magic beans growing in different areas of life in the garden, and because I love gardening,
Exactly. Yeah.
which is weird. Yeah,
I've seen that. I've seen your gardening journey, and I was like, damn, he's good at that.
I don't know where that came from. Just I like to garden.
Oh, that's awesome.
But when you want to talk about sharing resources, I definitely agree with people should be compensated for their time, their energy, their services, their product.
Mm-hmm.
It it's hard for me to get asked to do things for free or ask for products now. Like for the fact that like I love giving and I feel like that's very well known. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, I have to be careful to not be taken advantage of with that time, that resource, right? That a commodity we just cannot simply get back. But I have also have something to like push forward for others and to help mentor others in different realms because I've had great mentors too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's about having that full balance of being understandable about this is my business. I'm an artist in a different realm of light.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be paid for my service or my art or my product.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, knowing that you've been helped along the ways and realizing and understanding that like I can help this one individual maybe on this different realm of life.
Yeah.
And it should be a balance. You shouldn't just only be monetizing for sure or asking for value to be traded back to you.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's understand that if it's out there too often that I'll give my services for free for anyone, it's not as valuable to a lot of people anymore.
Exactly.
There's a psychology behind it that I actually remember reading in a book somewhere in the past, whatever, that if somebody trades a service or a product, any valuation for $1 more than something being completely for free, they don't take it for granted anymore because then they
Mm.
have $1 into your payment service or into your requirement of fee.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty wild to believe that at $1 in today's day and age, that doesn't get you too far.
Like anything. Yeah. Yeah.
That can take you from being respected to being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And again, I'm prone. I've come a long way with boundaries, but I was prone to that too, like just doing things for free. But you drop like whatever you give life to, it expands, right? So
Yeah,
like poor boundaries or people kind of, so then I would end up just, it's like every time I did that, I would attract this like mountain of more people that wanted that. And I was eventually, it's like, I can't do this anymore. Like,
it's just not like manageable.
no.
It's not. I wish there was no thing of called sleep because if
Yeah,
I could
yeah, exactly.
reply to messages or people all day, like, and not have to worry about the time that I'm allotted in life,
Hmm.
uh, I I'd be just doing crazy shit all the
And
time
do you
by my life.
feel like through your journey, so obviously like when you start out as an entrepreneur, this is something I observe just generally speaking. I see like people have a passion, they're just passionate about something. And then they're like, okay, but I do need to make money. And then money becomes this thing that people are concerned about. But then after you hit a certain threshold, it's like time
Yeah,
is the commodity that you're just trying to create or get more of.
yeah. And so there's been fluctuations with the income streams and stuff and everything that I've been able to do myself as an entrepreneur. But more than ever now, I think with our little one being as of 4 months old, like like this week,
So little.
so little, but like at the same time, I blinked and it was like 4 months went by. That for me personally, the birth of our baby girl Haven was a big understanding that I no longer have limitless amount of time to share
Yes.
with this world. My time is valuable because it's deserved to be with my family so
Hmm.
that I can be a present father and a present husband in the future. If people don't respect that, I can understand that they won't respect that, but our time is done together.
Hmm.
And so I think, like we were chatting about having that respect for our timelines and stuff like that, that was a part of my growth process that I didn't know was coming because I
Hmm.
thought things were going to just be on a continuous level or trajectory of where things were going from before.
Hmm.
understanding I only have short amount of time before she gets, goes into daycare, or before she goes into school, before she graduates, before, she gets married, all those things that
Mm-hmm.
are making me feel like a little anxious deep down inside.
Yeah.
Understanding that I only have allotted amount with her and maybe future children and, things of that matter,
Mm-hmm.
is making me respect my time a whole lot more than I ever have in my life.
Yeah. I feel that. That was like not in the same way, but I feel I learned like your health matters in the recent like time. You know, you can't just like work, work, work and then just be like, oh, I didn't have time for lunch, or oh, like I couldn't sleep because I was too worried about this, or oh, I've been skipping the gym, or I've been doing whatever. And it's like, yeah, like what is money or what is success if you don't have, people to share it with,
Yeah.
or, health to feel good about what you've created. Like it's funny how life does that. And I think when you're on an accelerated journey, like you've been, I would say I've also been on an accelerated journey. Like they have to teach you those things and like they have to get your attention.
Yeah.
So I feel like yeah, like you said, it kind of caught you off guard, realizing time, becoming a parent is going to be so important. But I
Yeah.
think people do respect that. Like, when you said I don't if people don't respect it, I want to be with my family. Like yeah, honestly, roads are separating
Yeah.
because that's madness.
With a blink, like a snap of a finger, be honest. Like, respect goes a long ways, and it's asked from both sides of parties and
Hmm.
everything, right? There has to be a mutual feeling of respect for each other, and there should have always been. The world needs more of it to this day. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, I agree with you on that.
I agree. So if you had like, I'm going to ask you for two final messages, but I'll start with one and I'll go with the other because I just tie them all in one. So if you had one final message to somebody who's like, I have this spark inside of me and I want something more, what would you say to them? Like, what would you say to someone who has a dream?
Someone has a dream. I already said it in the podcast when we talked about it, but like I said, trying to over perfect your craft, trying to over perfect your art, trying to over perfect your service to others, it's a great way to start, and it's a great way to like start establishing the basis of what you want. But if you get too concentrated and too focused on never starting in the first place because you have to reach an unrealistic point of perfection, you're never going to start.
Hmm.
And some of the best trials and tribulations and triumphs and, of course, downfalls in my life have started and progressed because literally I wasn't scared and I just went for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and during that process, like I said before, Denzel Washington said it, you ask for progress, not perfection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And
Pretty sure it was him.
I think if you're making progress, like you're on the right track.
Yeah.
So someone who can be really critical of themselves, like how I am, and it's just like hardwired into my DNA, I swear. But someone who can be as critical, like if I just like remembered that mantra and be like, well, are you doing better than you were last year? Are you doing
Yeah.
better than you were last month? And you're like, yep. Then you're like, then you're fine.
Huge.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. That's so empowering into yourself
Yeah.
because then it goes to that full circle of again not needing confirmation from others.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really hit a weird spot when it comes to the business side of things. Like you know how we have business awards here and recognitions here and stuff like that, right? Like Prince Albert
Mm-hmm.
Bob Awards and stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
those are all great and everything, and I've been appreciative of accumulating. Like I think we've had 9 in the first 2 years, and we've started.
I can't help but laugh because it's just like, wow, you've really just, yeah, put that passion into it and it shows.
Yeah, for sure, and thank you. But it was like this whole thing since I swear becoming a father. Like those things no longer served me as much as they did in the first place. Not
Mm-hmm.
taking anything away from them because I definitely believe everyone should get a chance to win one by true value to others and service.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful that we've received those. And honestly, there's a lot of people I know, including your mother, even voted for me lots of
My
times.
mom, that's so cute.
Yeah, but I hit a weird point in my life, whether it was just being too busy and focused on other things, that I never asked for it anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
I got to a point that like I didn't make any social media posts asking for friends or family to maybe consider voting for us on this level. And you know what? Like, we didn't receive any this year. I was totally fine with it. I was totally okay with it. And you know, there's business awards being brought up like for Prince Albert very soon. And I'm not even going to apply for any of them
Mm-hmm.
or like put my name forward or submit any information. I'm actually going to step back, and you know what, maybe if there's in different places in Saskatchewan that, you know, have
Mm-hmm.
recognition awards, maybe I'll put my name forward for those. I'm no longer going to ask here. I feel like, you know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thankful for a lot of the things I've been gifted here,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to expand those horizons and let people other in Prince Albert, you know, that I don't know, run establishments and, you know, that's their focus and stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
want them to witness those and things of that matter. And it's been a weird stage of growth, and like, even, you know, incantations is something that I'm getting big into, like trying to read every day, all day,
Mm-hmm.
why I'm doing this, why I'm trying to be a productive speaker and things of that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, I want to add as much value as possible to this world.
I like that. I really like that.
I just went on a tangent there. I don't even know
No,
where we're at.
no,
So
I know where we're at. I'm just taking that in. No, that's
okay.
amazing. And I'm just like receiving that because I'm like, yeah, like what the like I just want to say like what the fuck have I been thinking about this past year? Like what have I been doing? Because I feel like it hasn't been as intentional, but I was doing lots of my own inner healing. But my second question was, if you were to tell people, so let's say there are people out there that aren't necessarily being like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, and they just want to like add more value into their life by having better boundaries or have more time for themselves. Do you have like a piece of advice for like how to just like be courageous in your day-to-day life or have better boundaries in your day-to-day life and see the value that you bring even in just like your day-to-day with your family, with your friends? Would it still be the same thing, just like make
Hmm.
progress one step at a time?
Yeah, in a sort of different sense of light, like small action, consistent action steps get you to that longevity of where you want.
Mm-hmm.
For me, also understand that hard work does come with what you want, definitely in life, whether that's, you know, altering your direction of career or business or whatever it may be. Like, I definitely know I wouldn't be at this place in life if I just wanted to work 10 hours a week and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it took a couple of years of working countless hours. I never counted hours. I always rounded wherever, like, you know, if I worked 85 hours in a week, whatever, something stupid, I would say, oh, it's just an 80-hour week. You know, I just didn't count exact hours. I just
Mm-hmm.
knew it was ridiculous, and I was I was needing sleep. But now it's hit to a point where like I'm feeling relaxed, I'm feeling calm, I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
patient, and I'm understanding where I can put my value added to different people's lives. But one of the biggest things that I had to understand in the first place is that like we all have different unique creative strengths, talents, arts, whatever it may be, whether that's, you know, art or painting or music or whatever that may be for every single one of us. There is something that we were gifted in life, and if not gifted off the bat, we were rewarded with some know-hows or know-hows
Mm-hmm.
how to progress those. And so with just some simple steps of continuously working on something, just one thing ever, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you can add value to different people's lives just by progressing something of like one piece of that value.
And so like your personal value that you hold within you, and that is like, that's just so true. Like I say that to people all the time, like, and it's not me, I didn't make it up, but I hear people like things like, what you went through and being able to overcome it or experience it is like can be your gift to others in the future.
Yeah,
Like you can show other people how to get through that. So like your darkest days become like your greatest gift,
yeah,
and even just like your greatest passions become your greatest like gifts.
yeah.
So then I just have one offshoot question and then we'll wrap it up. But I'm just curious, like when you were a kid, was there ever any like hints that you were going to be here in the future? Was there any like childhood passions that ended up turning into this?
Yeah, so for sure. I remember being like 11 years old, sneaking out of like my bedroom. Like, I think it was upstairs or downstairs in my mom's house. My brother was already moved out at this time. It might have even been 10. Like, my timelines aren't exactly there. But I remember like sneaking out of a bedroom and going to play like on her like old old computer that was like a desktop computer.
You know, those big, huge ones.
It was, yeah, it was pretty decent size and loud. Um, but I remember like playing a video game, like it was a virtual video game on it. It was Lemonade Stand, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
the name tells what the game is about. You run a lemonade stand. I literally remember like being up all hours of the night, being quiet because I knew like I was gonna be told to go to bed if I was heard. And like I just remember playing that game over and over again, like trying to like buy cups and buy ice and buy sugar and buy lemons, and like just trying to run a successful little lemonade stand virtually on this computer. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I know how repetitive this is, but like this is fun for me. And like I just remember every single video game growing up and just whatever I got into, I just always had a concept of like money transactions or business.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the games I've ever played was like literally build a business in your video game.
What?
I don't know where that came from. And after I got to know my family, like my dad's side a little bit more in life, I found out, my grandma ran like a picture framing business for like 30 some years. My dad ran an oil sands business for like 20 some years. And I guess
Wow.
entrepreneurship was in my blood, and I never really honed in on that until I started becoming a little bit more older and understand that, I can offer a little bit more to this world with doing things that I can understand and I can control a little bit more. And
Wow.
so, and that helped expand the question of, or the statement that I love sharing with people is that once you believe you have the ability and capacity to do great things, that is when life becomes limitless.
Ooh, I have goosebumps. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cody. Well, we can leave it there because I think that's the peak for sure. Well, it was so great to talk to you. And again, if you ever have more things you want to share, let's get you on the podcast. And if people want to find you or get more information about your services, how could they do that?
For sure, when it comes to like the life coaching and all that fun
Mhm.
jazz or speaking opportunities, my email is just Cody, Cody, Dems, Demz at hotmail.com.
Perfect.
Or Facebook or Instagram, just my name.
Okay,
Just got
awesome.
to know how to spell it.
I'll link it in the bio so people can get a hold of you if they feel they need to. And